Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and let's talk about specifically. Let's talk about American politics and Kamala Harris and the Teamsters announcing that they're endorsing no one. Very interesting story. So, who are the Teamsters? So, first of all, I live near New Jersey, and I'll drive past buildings that have Teamster across them. I think they're a union, but it's hard to tell because I also watch the big and small screen, and the big and small screen tells me that the Teamsters are something different than a union, right? And that's a harsh reality for them. I think there's like, what are the Teamsters? A union? Like, so I think that's tough. That's tough, right? And I think true name is a thing. Like, do people know what you are, what you stand for, right? And so I guess, I think if you looked up on Wikipedia, Wikipedia would tell you that the Teamsters are a union, right? So basically, I think there's this really big question of, what are the Teamsters and what is happening with them. So at the macro level, I think most people consider them a union, right? But also that word just has some freight to it, and so that's tough. That's tough. The freight that it has, right? So here's the story. So in September 2024, this Teamsters come forward, right, and they're going to announce their endorsement. Now, at this point, everybody expects that the Teamsters are going to announce for Biden, right? Biden's famous for having gained some ground with unions, right? And generally, Republicans don't give any shrift to unions. They don't give any shrift to unions. And the reason why is Republicans generally want business to grow, right? And and so they're really for hyper modern disruptors. They're market wins, lower the taxes, let the money flow, deregulation, all that, right? And it just doesn't seem. And when you think about, fast commerce, things getting built quickly, things getting built without obstruction, things getting built with like verve, right? Generally, that does not align with unions, right? I think overall. So what is the story here? Well, first of all, there's a few different stories. Story number one, right, is why did the Teamsters announce that they weren't endorsing anyone, right? What is the point of that, right? Like, if you're not going to endorse anybody, the way you can do that is by not saying anything. So by not endorsing anyone, it brings this question of, do you guys know what you are? Because I think, and then the story becomes the Democrats are in a lot of trouble, right? And so the Teamsters, I think the entire point of this story is that the Teamsters, if you want to be relevant, you have to be willing to make hard choices. And I think that Teamsters right now are communicating that they don't have leadership that can take the slings and arrows it takes to stand next to a candidate, right? And also that they don't understand basic communication. You don't need to announce that you're not endorsing anyone. You simply don't need. You simply keep your mouth shut, and that says there's another day going by where we didn't endorse anyone, right? And then, and that would have been a better way, like, it didn't, I think it was really destructive to the reputation of the Teamsters to not endorse, because then people are just like, well, are you guys even remotely relevant anymore? Right? And so that's tough. That's a really, really tough situation. Like, can you claim relevancy if you're not willing to make hard decisions, right? And if you don't have a leader who can say, this is our decision and we are coming out for this, right? So I'm not saying they're not irrelevant, but it really begs the question, right? Like, because you don't need leaders to say we're not endorsing X or Y, right? Like that's just like communicating that you don't have the stomach to stand next to a candidate, right? The other huge story here is the Dems don't own any groups they thought they did, right? So let's count them off. We own, Dems. We own the young people. We own the exciting young vote. Young people don't vote. They never show up. Yeah, you own them. They squawked for you, and they even rallied for you, and they even marched for you, but they didn't vote for you, right? Next one, people of color, right? Like this was assumed, right? Like, oh, people of color, Democrats support us. We're going to support them. We're going to pull the lever for them. Tons of people of color saying we're not a monolith, right? We support Republicans and Democrats, right? So people of color, not really, at the macro level, really supporting Democrats anymore. That is a huge change. And then finally, unions, right? There was it was common knowledge that that the Dems owned unions, right? That they were going to get union votes, and here we are, 2024. Young people not showing up for Dems, upset about Palestine, upset about a whole bunch of things, right? And just not polling for them. And then people of color really spreading their vote wide, right? And saying, you can't count us in on either party all in, right? You got to wait until we see it in the polls. And, we used to line up for Dems because we felt they supported us, but those days have changed, right? And then finally, unions. So Dems used to really own the vote of young people, people of color, and unions. None of those groups can be counted on the Dem side now. It's all up for grabs, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.